Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. This is Bad Batch Report. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host, and with me is Molly.
Hello again.
And today we are talking about the clone conspiracy and Truth and Consequences, which is such a good two-parter. Oh my goodness. Again. It's been great.
I struggle to sit through 2 episodes. Usually, I'm like, oh no, I just want like a nice short little interlude so I can go back to not having to super focus on something. But I think they go so well together. And I like it. I like that they're broken up like that too.
Yeah. It gives you a good sort of setup with what's happening on Coruscant, and then a nice sort of action resolution. This was the most sort of political Clone Warsy level episode that we've gotten.
My favorite. I love political Star Wars. That's I love it. I would happily devour a whole show of just politics with Star Wars. But I don't know. I was so happy to be back on Coruscant.
And especially dealing with the politics of the Senate and seeing Rampart specifically and all of his power plays within the Senate.
Can I just mention this is probably not as impactful for you, but can I just for any other American listeners, how we got that episode the same night as the State of the Union address with Biden, and it just is just the timing of it was just funny, especially because if you watch any of the clips from the State of the Union, it's it was pretty it's hilarious to watch. And so I was just this is a very political evening, because I don't know, it was just really funny. It's just to see the juxtaposition of real politics with, Rampart just being taken down, which was wonderful to see. And obviously, I don't know, we'll get to it, but I just was very amused that we got both of those in the same night.
And before we get into the clone conspiracy, I did want to talk about some sort of overarching things that are happening within the show. It's very clear that with the addition of these 2 episodes, like we've been saying for the last 2 seasons here, this is leading towards a clone trooper rebellion. It's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm just kind of waiting for each time. I was going to say each week, for each episode, but the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 episodes. And I don't know where these episodes are taking us and what story they are telling, because it's very deliberate that these 2 episodes are put together last week. The 2 episodes are put together. And I was trying to figure out what the overall art was. And this is the closest, I think, to getting to that. Now I'm thinking, are we going to be there next week? Are we going to start to, I don't know.
Will it actually happen by the end of this season?
That's a good point.
I'm actually thinking it's way sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
Or at least an attempt at a rebellion is going to happen.
I honestly, I don't have good feelings for our clone friends, though. I think the music for this arc was very telling. Mm-hmm. There was not very much. I always love the musical cues that you get, and it was just I don't have a very good feeling. I've got a bad feeling about this.
There was a lot of feeling of everything being disconcerting, and the music played into that. I think it also played up with the film noir aspects that were heavy in the Clone Wars cartoon, as well as Attack of the Clones. It just created just an atmosphere of uneasiness with this first episode, especially. There was more action adventure in the second episodes, but the first episode, just being unsure of everything was so big. I also want to mention that this is furthering along my feelings that the clones represent the wounded masculine within the dominator culture of the Star Wars galaxy, right? As a cohesive unit, all of them have been created and programmed to only be violent, and they are only good as violent tools or dead. And that's what the show is saying. It's not just me. I have this amazing quote from Bell Hooks. I've used this one before, but masses of boys and men have been programmed from birth to believe at some point they must be violent, whether psychologically or physically, to prove they are men. And so it's that kind of concept. And in addition to that, men who win in patriarchal terms end up losing in their substantive quality of life. They choose patriarchal manhood over loving connections, first to forego self-love, and then the love that they could give and receive that would connect them to others. She goes on to say in The Will to Change that to create a culture that will enable boys to love, we must see the family as having its primary function of giving love, providing food and shelter are loving acts. And so we see these two sets of clones. We see the Bad Batch and we see the clones within the army, right? Men in a patriarchal culture are told the only value they have is by being dominators and committing violence. And the clones themselves represent that overall. The Bad Batch, being kind of born different, are switching that lever and saying their family and the love that they have for each other is first and foremost. And how we know this is because they are rejecting violence against other clones, which represent the self to them. And this is how they're learning how to love and nurture.
Well, I mean, they have that with, the introduction of Omega originally too. It like brings that softer side about, but also you're definitely seeing that theme of the rejection of masculinity, at least this season. What jumps out at me is when, I think it was the second episode when Rampart shot, I'm so sorry, I forgot his name. They all have these very easy names to remember.
It was will call. Wilco, which is like will comply.
I like will call.
Yeah. Wilco, yeah. It was Wilco.
Yeah, but just the refusal to the like stress on the word, brother, and just the connection that they all have and showing them as like individuals. You see it in so many different aspects. You see it in like the episode with Crosshair and then Wilco, and then, this arc, it's just being presented over and over again too. So I don't think that's like you said, it's like the writing on the wall. It's right there. That that's the overall theme.
And
like, I get
they
it.
themselves are trying to get everybody out of this, right? It's not just one of them, because like the clones themselves represent a whole.
Yeah.
In addition to the clones, Omega is this burgeoning femininity within this masculine mass, right? And she's presented throughout this season specifically with all of these different types of femme role models, right? From Fee to
my girl Sid.
Yeah. And of course to Senator Chuchi in this episode, as well as even like the Kaminoan senator, right? All different sorts of types of people. It's really cool. And that's really important because she represents sort of this burgeoning anima of the clones themselves, which is this growing tiny femininity within them, something that the Bad Batch is protecting. It's really cool.
I mean, I just want to see her leading a rebellion, sitting on like the shoulders of like Crosshair, who's like, yeah, like I just want to see him this is my dream, because I'm probably in the minority of like, I want, us to see Crosshair
return. No, of course you're not in the minority.
Well, I guess the like I was waiting. I really was waiting for his appearance this whole 2-episode arc, because I thought this is it. Like he's kind of going to come back, and I want to see that, like his journey in particular. I want to see a full, like, I don't want to see him die. I want to see him like, not redemption. I don't. So it's such a like loaded thought. I don't know if it's, and you may disagree, I don't know if there's any sort of redemption that needs to happen, because, they are fighting back against their programming. So it's, then becomes like a
I mean, I think redemption is just another word for the journey home from the unknown, from being stuck in the underworld, right? And that's where he's at. It's not like, do we blame soldiers for following orders?
Good soldiers follow orders.
Right? Do we
Right.
like, it's the institution, and we're reminded of that by the Caminoan senator Hallie, right? She says Rampart is even just a cog in the machine.
Exactly. Good. Like she was serving everything that I was ordering. I mean, that part, and look, listeners, I need you to know I am a like Chuchi stan. I love her. She is like, her design and just her character in general, like from what little of the Clone Wars I saw, I always like remember her. But her suggestion to like, we need to go to the Senate and present evidence, or like present our argument with no evidence. And Hallie's just like, you need concrete proof. Don't get crazy. I mean, I was like, finally someone said it, because I feel like you see this all the time in Star Wars and other media of like characters just making bad choices like that. And
and she's
that.
like, wait a second. And what I love is that this show shows so many older women characters that give like this sense of grounding to Omega and to Chuchi, which is great, right? Like Chuchi represents this like queen archetype. She's trying to protect the baby ducklings of the clones, right? She's like, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to care for you. I'm going to make sure that people haven't forgotten you. And Omega gets to witness this. She not only gets to witness Chi-Chi as like a very, very femme-coded woman, right? Who's pretty and beautiful, but also like listens to advice and like learns, which is great.
When she needs that. She's had enough exposure with the guys. So it's good to see like what I said with when Hallie, was like, basically just say like, well, if you bring Rampart out in front of the Senate, what are you accomplishing? I think what I said was girl boss, because she was just exuding that kind of energy, and like, you just, I don't know, you need to see it. But I also really like that. I felt like they were setting Chi-Chi up to be, I mean, I think we'll continue seeing, we need that outside force, or like that outside entity that is fighting for them and is on their side, and is
like literally the only one that's fighting for the clones, like as an outside person.
I know. I was like, forgive me because of my lack of Clone Wars knowledge and trivia, but I was like, I don't know what her motivation is other than being a good person and, just
I think that's
doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if it was something I had missed, but I was like, I don't know what her motivation is, but I appreciate it because she's the only one on their side pretty much. And we definitely get the sense at the end where she's like, I will continue fighting. And it's hard because you get like the worst that, you see the clones have to become the Imperial troopers. And she's like, I'm going to continue fighting for y'all. I love that.
Any other thoughts before we start the clone conspiracy?
I'm ready.
All right. So we start out with a clone off-duty cantina.
Sorry, I can't remember. We've seen this before. I might have been in the first season, maybe. I
feel like we've seen a clone cantina before. I don't know if we've seen this one. I know that there was one in the Clone Wars as well.
Okay, I know what it was because one of the only things with, I think it was like on TV, and I randomly saw the one where they have that poor trooper who dies, and because they're trying to remove or deprogram those chips that they have, and it was like, I like started crying when I was watching it. But I'm pretty sure they had a canteen also there, but there's just something about the atmosphere had me laughing. I don't know, it's the lighting, and it's just like all the guys hanging out. I don't know, it's just cracking me up the whole time. But lots of facial hair too. Yeah, I love seeing all the variations of like what they do to like be individuals.
Unique. Yeah,
exactly.
And we have two clones talking to each other. We have Cade, who's really, really upset about what's happened with Kamino and Vice Admiral Rampart's lies. around the destruction of it. They were both there, and Slip's like, in denial, right? He's absolutely in denial about what has happened and that his part in it, like he was just following orders, which is something that people do slip into quite easily when it comes to sort of the
You got there.
I got there. Sometimes I say stuff and then people are like, "You were brilliant." I was like, "I'm an idiot. I didn't see that as I was
story of my life."
No, but and they're having these discussions and it leads them kind of outside, and Cade ends up getting hit by a sniper, right? Like an assassin that's like, "You've been talking about this. This is not good," because he has threatened Rampart to go forward with like sharing information with the Senate. And this sort of pushes Slip into like being a runaway, and taking a speeder bike across the Coruscantian skies. And just seeing Coruscant again was just so cool in this sort of aspect.
I mean, like I said, I'm always happy to be on Coruscant, and I think it's fascinating, especially every time you get to visit it in some sense, whether it be like in literature or on the screen after the events of Revenge of the Sith. I think it's always so interesting because it's a different kind of lens. There's just like this, it always has like a underlying theme of like scum and villainy on, it's just like the slimy underground, world lurking beneath the rich, senators and I almost said congressman, but it's just like that power, the wealth and power imbalance. And that's always there. But now it's like, I don't know, it's just so interesting how depressing
they made it. Yeah.
I feel so unsettled seeing it, and I love it. I'm just happy to be there. I'm always worried for Bale though, because I'm like, how is he like
surviving?
How does this man wake up every day? I don't know. Like, I don't know how he does it, but I'm glad we got to see him too. I thought we had R2. Obviously, I was not thinking because I went, ooh, and he's like RC something or something like that. I was like, oh, not him.
They cut to the Senate, which is in the proceedings to vote on the defense recruitment bill that Rampart's trying to bring forward, which would effectively, because Kamino has been destroyed and thus the source of the clones, they need to have more recruits. And so they're like, let's go and get more recruits from the general population instead of just growing them ourselves because of like vague threats in the outer rim and mid rim. To basically say, to control the less controllable parts of the galaxy, they need more soldiers from the population. It's imperialism.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I mean, it is the Empire, right? But
yeah, I mean, it's like, that's just interesting because I also wasn't thinking of, man, how do we get to from the, I'm always like, where did all the clones go? But for some reason, I wasn't connecting the dots that we would be revisiting the tragedy on Kamino. And I think at the very end of the first season, all you're thinking about is my friends survived. But now you're thinking of it as a whole, and it's just so it's just so heavy. I really felt this whole this whole sadness and PTSD and everything internally, like in myself, because it's just it's that feeling of like watching a war in another country across the world, and you're only getting bits and pieces of what's going on. It's like that same feeling of like helplessness. And I just wasn't, again, I said it before, like, I'm not trying to predict every single thing like that's going to happen. I didn't know that this was a possibility of something that we would return to, but like now it makes sense. Of course it does if we're leading up to a rebellion, and it's just, it was heavy. I don't even know where I was going with that.
It was just a lot of emotion. I mean, fair.
I had a lot of emotion again, but different from last week's emotions.
Yeah. Bail Organa has a problem with it because of, I mean, he's
a good person.
Yeah. And the Emergency Power Act was like, what cause the grand deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic, and really like, is this something that the Senate wants, and why isn't Emperor Palpatine being more direct with these things? And essentially Palpatine's like modus operandi is to let other people make decisions for him.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Or like to present those decisions so it doesn't seem like it's him. Right? And if he needs to, he'll come in and be the wise counsel that has finally come in to save the day. But it's never going to be him that's going to be outwardly aggressive. He's going to let other people do that. And Ameta, who's like the speaker, the Grand Vizier Mas Amata, he's like he's the guy with the horns and the cool staff. But he's basically the guy that stands in place for Emperor Palpatine in the Senate when, you know, Palpatine just doesn't want to show up. And he's like, no, we want you all to make what's the best decisions for the interest of the galaxy, which is just playing into Emperor Palpatine's hands, that he wants them as the people to comply with what Palpatine already wants. And if he can't get it through just people wanting to do it, he will twist it to make it happen his way, either way. But I love Rio Chuchi, Senator Chuchi, just literally caring about the clones and saying, if you're going to decommission them, we have to care about them at the same time that you're building this new army.
Well, it's a very, very obvious parallel with like how we just, the like mistreatment of like veterans here, at least, like they're just kind of left out to dry after having, you know, they're serving our country. They have extreme PTSD and they are left with like not a lot of support and end up easily, many of them are easily on the streets. Like, you know, it's so incredibly sad. And it's something, I don't know, it's just like, you don't, the idea of having compassion and caring is such a, it goes back to like what you were saying with forced masculinity and the toxicity of it, and how there's a lack of compassion and heart. And so it becomes a very, you know, it's always a feminine quality to have. And it's something that that's the reason why I've always been attracted to Padme as a character, and how, you know, I've always kind of clung to her, even though there's, you know, a hardness to her too. And I think Chuchi is just another, she's the closest that we get to having that kind of character again. It's just like,
yeah, I don't get a lot of like nurturing out of Mon Mothma.
No, I mean,
whereas like Chuchi is like straight up just like, we have to care for the people that we have used as tools in this war effort. And, you know, this puts sort of a kibosh on the immediate plans of now Admiral Rampart. And so he sets off to basically, I don't know, co-opt her after some warning from Grand Vizier Ameta in his expression that he doesn't feel like Rampart can pull this off. Right.
I like when they're, side note, when they were walking down, I think the hallways of
the Senate. Yeah.
I was like, are they dumb? Why are they just speaking about their... I don't understand Star Wars always having characters just out in the open discussing things like this. If this were the real world, everyone would know about like Palpatine way early, because they're just putting all
literally
their
just talking about it
in a technologically advanced society. Is no one bugging them? It blows my mind. I don't know. That's just, that always sticks with me. And I was just like, oh, if I was there, I could end this right now. But anyway, continue. I just needed you to know.
No, I feel you, because sometimes Star Wars is like, oh, these people are just blabbing.
Idiots.
Well, it's like, how did Obi-Wan not see that Padme and Anakin had a thing? He shows up and Anakin's like shirtless in the living room.
Oh, I guess he was just hot.
Yeah, it's like, why are you always over here? I don't know. I sleep on the couch. Yeah, no, that's not a thing. But But this leads Chuchi to meet with several clone troopers. And, I really found this part super fascinating where she's like, I want to better understand your needs. And the clone troopers' automatic response to this is, I want to stay a trooper, right? Because
she mentions a pension. She's like, we'll set you up with a pension. And he's like, well, that's not
what I want.
That's not what I want. I
want to stay useful. I want to still have purpose.
Exactly.
What was your purpose? Was to be a soldier.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hard, because that, as a society, what I talked about before from like the dominator culture, is what we tell all of our young men, is that they must be violent. They must be soldiers. They must be willing to be soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And this trooper's like, that's all I am. But then she twists it and says, well, what happens when you're too old to fight? What happens? What do you do after? You need to choose what you will become. Yes, you were bred to fight, but there is a life after what you've been told you were meant for. And it could be something that you choose. Choice is key.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's something that they really consider. Like the ones that are like, this is literally all I want to do because this is all I know. I think that's extremely hard for them too, to get, just to like, logically, I'm like, a pension's great. I mean, you could have that. You could ask for other things too, but you should just let her do the pension at the very least, because like, where else are you going to live? And like, what are you living off of? But it's also like having that choice is, again, it's just another foil to that masculinity that you're describing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And also how many people, without also being given options like, hey, retraining from when you were in the military, and this is now what you can do. You could become a baker. You could become, sometimes people don't know how to find the thing that gives them purpose. That's hard. And that's going to be a question, I think. It's asked, but it's not asked outwardly in a huge manner. It's very subtle, but I think that's going to be part of the Bad Batch's challenge with the clone trooper freedom, right? Yeah. What do you do with millions and millions of people that don't feel like they have a purpose?
And that even just like as a viewer, you really forget about them. Like it's a story that, is anyone in their world caring outside of like, Chuchi and, a few others maybe, but like, it's just that there's so many of them. There's an overwhelming number of clones out there. And I don't know, it's just so interesting that there's this whole other development going on, and you're forced to think about, well, what next with them? Because you only, I like that you completely forget about the Bad Batch for a while with these episodes, except for Omega. But it's kind of like they are perfectly content going out doing missions, like just living life like that, other than Echo, obviously. But
because they feel like they have a new purpose, which is
exactly
get money, protect the family unit.
Yeah.
Right? And make sure Omega grows up okay. They feel like their needs are met.
Yeah.
Right? But really all they're doing is doing their wants. And their need is, if one of them is free, all of them have to be free. All of the clones have to be free. That's hard. That's hard. And they don't even realize it yet.
Of course not.
Because they're all connected, right? All of the brothers, all of the clones are connected.
Except Omega. She's there on the outside. She's connected. It's just I never look at her and think of her as a clone ever. I mean, she
understands who she is too.
Yes.
Yeah. So Chuchi manages to find Slip. Slip says, I don't trust Rampart. Right. And, he's been responsible for clones disappearing or being transferred. And, he disappears basically after they speak at the cantina. Slip manages to message somebody off world. And I knew it was going to be Rex.
I feel like a dum-dum because everyone thought that. And I was like, what new character are we going to meet? I'm like, I don't know. I wish that I was like everyone else and was like, it's obviously him. He didn't even enter my mind. I have no idea who it could be, but I'm always happy to see him. Everyone loves him.
He's literally my favorite clone. I have a Lego minifig keychain of
Oh my
him.
gosh. I know which one yeah, I've seen it. It's like I've seen those before. He's actually when I went to like side note at Celebration. No, it was before Celebration. I went to the Star Wars night that everyone else didn't go to. I went on May 4th.
Right, yeah.
And I was waiting in line to meet Ezra. And I'm trying to remember who was with Ezra. I don't remember. But right when we were at the front of the line, they went on break and Rex came out for you to take a picture with. Mind you, I had not finished Rebels at that point. I didn't care about Rex. And I was like, I got out of the line and was like, I don't want a picture. So
now you regret. Now
I regret everything.
Yeah. Even though Chuchi now has reason to be suspicious of Admiral Rampart, she still goes ahead and starts negotiations, and Rampart like gives her everything she wants. Which should have been like suspicious enough.
Yeah.
And she asks him like, how did he get out of there if the vast majority of the Kaminoans died? And he was like, oh, I was off planet on a trip.
Yeah, great lying. Stellar, like A+, like the stupidest. If you want to tell someone that you're the bad guy, Rampart is a perfect example. Yeah, Rampart is the perfect example.
We have Chuchi, who manages to meet up with Senator Organa, and he seems to sort of guide her a little bit. In that he says, he's just sort of conceding to you to like get you out of the way.
But he's seen it all though. Like he knows.
Yeah.
He's been through so much already. Like he just knows what to look for.
Exactly. I love that she mentions clone rights like as like a thing. Like I've been a big proponent of droid rights. Clone rights are very similar in the same sort of vein that like clones were created for a specific purpose and they should have the right to choose other things in their life. And this, has gone back to some of the Clone Wars episodes with like the deserter and everything like that to give more purpose to the clones than just what they were created for. And so I will always be a droid rights person and I will always be a clone rights person.
Well, I mean, it's like the same vein that I highly doubt that everyone in that galaxy is looking at. Like, I don't think the vast majority looks at them as like people or anyone deserving of rights. And yeah, clone rights. I agree. I'm also a big fan of droid rights, by the way. I love droids, even if I don't remember their names half the time. But yeah, it's just another example of like how limited rights are for so many groups of people in the real world and in that galaxy. Because again, I just don't think people are viewing them as anything other than dispensable.
It's why I had a lot of problems with the hallway scene at the end of Mandalorian season 2, because Luke Skywalker has connections with droids and knows they don't really have a choice. And so he chose to destroy a bunch of droids, and it just didn't feel in character.
It's because he had the animation, the face AI stuff on.
Are you saying it wasn't him? No, I mean, like, droids are sentient, right? And that's been expressed a lot in canon. And, clones are also sentient, and they're just like an analogy for a group that is stuck in the system.
Yeah. Marginalized.
Yeah, marginalized. Yeah. Chuchi is on the look out for Slip, the clone. Rampart takes it into his own hands to tell the assassin to kill Slip, and Chuchi, if she happens to get in the way, take her out.
I was like, oh, look, it's Crosshair, because again, I'm a dum-dum. I know it was intentional, I think.
I thought for a hot second, like it was a young Boba Fett, but he wouldn't have been that old.
Okay. I just got excited because like someone else said that while I was watching and like texting, and I was like, why would it be Boba Fett? I'm just so excited to hear you say that too, because I'm like, okay, like maybe
I forget what time it is. Like what I mean, we've had time passed, right? So I'm like, he's like a teenager, maybe a little older. I was like, maybe he got.
How cool would that have been? He might still. You don't know.
I think he actually does. He needs to show up because
I'd be surprised if he didn't.
We need Alpha and Omega together, right?
Yeah.
We need the two of them together. So Alpha being Boba Fett's call number or whatever, because he was the first created, and Omega being the last created, and that's. The two of them together are kind of like the bookends of the clones.
It's also just funny thinking of young Boba, who I hated in the Clone Wars because he's just so angry all the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, he has a right to kind of be angry, but like I really was like, I don't like this little stinker at all. And Omega is the complete opposite. She's just like, I want to love her and hold her and protect her and give her a million Lulas to cuddle and like, gonky friends and everything. So it's just picture him glaring.
Yeah, I want them to exist in the same space and
interact for a second. Yeah, that'd be so cool. I hope it happens.
Like I just want him to know that she exists.
Yeah.
So Chuchi ends up catching up with Slip in a back alleyway, and he's like, he tells her about the Venerator and the backup of the events of Tipoca City, on the ship. And he suddenly realizes that, like, the assassin could find them because she found him.
Yeah, he was like, how the heck did you find me? I thought I was good at this. It was such a blow to his masculine. No, it's just it's just so funny that, like, yes, you were found by like the cutest senator ever. She's just so cute.
She's so cute. She's like a bubblegum senator.
Oh my gosh, I'm only going to use that from now on. Yeah, she's like bubblegum. You're so right. It's those pigtails that she used to have. That's why.
Yeah. I love her makeup. I love seeing Pantorans like cosplay because it's so fun to actually see them in real life.
I was thinking that last night. I was like, I really would love to see an updated, older Chuchi kind of cosplay at Celebration. I understand how hard that is, just from like how hard it is, even considering being Hera. It's doing the full makeup is just good luck to you. I really want to see it though. I think it'd be so cool, especially like I like her. I don't know, and you probably had better ideas of it, but I thought it was just her not wearing a gown and wearing pants really struck me when they showed it, to the point where I was like almost, said something about how it was just surprising because you only ever saw like Padme in Clone Wars wearing pants when she's not in the Senate. She's only doing that like on the side, like when she's off adventuring or whatever. And so it's a cool wardrobe choice for them to have made.
And it might have been just utility because she has to like run and it's not like they're going to build like one design for her. But I feel like her outfit was feminine, but like serviceable a lot for this episode.
Cool.
Yeah. So Chuchi is like running away and her guards are helping her escape. One guard gets killed. She runs more. There is another figure that appears after her second guard dies, running away through the factory. And I gotta say, for like a hot minute, I shipped her guard and her together because like he full on like bodyguard like jumped in the way of like getting her hurt, and he kept on like lifting her. And I was like, they could do the bodyguard. And
we're just starved for romance. Okay, we're just very starved for.
Like, he was tall. He had
anything.
a nice voice.
Yeah, couldn't see his face really, but that's okay.
Like do this for me, Star Wars. Give Chuchi like a hot guard boyfriend. That would be amazing.
Well, let's get a book or something. I'm so desperate.
I'm so desperate. We're desperate for anything.
Eddie wrote, yeah, just crumbs. I don't care who the characters. Okay, well, no, I do care. I don't want to see the from Andor. God, I'm blanking on the names because I haven't had to think about them. You know, I don't want that. Well, like I tweeted, I was like the hot new ship on the block. But like for the most part, the Bad Batch is not where we're gonna get it, even though it would be great to see. I don't blame you.
They should add that in, like Omega needs a boyfriend.
Yeah, into everything. Like anything. Like actually it is interesting though. Her interactions with young Hera, I loved seeing. I love seeing her with
girlfriend.
Other or a girlfriend. Well, I meant like I love seeing her with someone else closer to her age. And we haven't really seen that. Like, but yeah, she can date whoever. I support her, whatever she chooses.
Whatever she wants.
You know, whatever you want, Omega. But it would, I was just thinking about because we keep getting different.
I just want to see
women.
Hunter lose his mind if Omega actually has a crush on somebody.
I'm sure there's fan art of like dad Hunter, like young lady, like, and Mirko is like, have fun. I just like love how each of them is such a character. You just it's like my calculations are that this is going to end terribly. Like I don't know what Echo would do, but anyway.
I mean, he's been showing a lot of sensitivity, so I think he would just give her good advice.
Yeah.
But Captain Rex shows up and saves her and, you know, says, oh, hey, you know, he called me. I was trying to meet up with Slip and, you know, this happened. So they bring the assassin back to Trace Martez repair shop, which if you've seen Clone Wars season 7, they were in those Ahsoka episodes.
It took me a minute to recognize it.
Yeah, which ties back from like Ahsoka and Rex are like still in contact. Yeah, which is nice. It's nice to see. You know, he takes off the mask and this clone really is either programmed or just a true believer, which is what we're led to believe. Similar to Crosshair, right? The mask, the whole thing, he's supposed to remind you of Crosshair, and he's a true believer, and he kills himself with like the effect
horrific.
Like, yeah, it's like a mouth poison capsule, but it's like electric shock capsule, and kills himself, and Chi-Chi's like, what the hell?
Anticipating that too. It's his facial expressions. I was like,
yeah, which, you know, was a hard thing to watch. Yeah. This moves on directly into Truth and Consequences, which we're back with the Bad Batch, and Omega's practicing meditating. What did you think of this?
Probably wasn't thinking as deeply because my thoughts were like mostly, I'm being reintroduced again to the characters I somehow forgot about for a bit.
We were in a Clone Wars episode, weren't we?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly. I think I also, it's hard to put my words together because now when I think of any sort of, my first thought always now when I see any character meditating is of Rey floating at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I, always associate it with her now, but it's not the answer you're looking for, unfortunately.
But I like that Gunji had taught her. And it certainly, we had kind of talked about this last episode where we were like, maybe Omega has
I forgot I did say, like, I forgot that I was like, what if? And maybe that's why I associate it with Rey, because she's, teaching herself a lot. And maybe there is, because like how much, other than Gunji, who's a child, how much exposure, to the Force or how much knowledge does Omega really have, outside of like her adventures? She's mostly just interacting with Bad Batch majority of the time. So she could have that little, part of her that's, I don't know. That's a thinker. Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting. And meditation is awesome, but it certainly seems to be like an indication that there's something more special about Omega.
They have a stronger connection to the Force. And I think that that's important because, and the reason why it's not that I want to see Omega have a strong connection to the Force so that she's like doing cool tricks or because like, yeah, more Jedi things. It's more so because I want to see that I feel like it gives more humanity, like even more to someone that was created in a lab, makes her like she's already special, obviously, but
it makes her kind of even more connected to the universe as large than
and it says, who knows? Like other clones could be like that too.
There was a lot of theories in the first season that she was a partial clone of Palpatine.
Why does everyone though have to be?
I know, but
I see why. I see. Yeah,
I mean, it can kind of tie into the whole meta plot of Star Wars, I guess, where it ended up going because of the rise of Skywalker. In that, Omega having the Force is like a clone who had the Force, right?
I would just like to see that. I would like to see a clone with the Force. That's all.
Yeah, but it sort of indicates that it's possible, right? Which is, I don't know, fine if they're going to do that, as long as it makes story sense, right? For Omega, for the Bad Batch as a story, right?
I'm not asking to see her with a lightsaber. We don't need that journey. She doesn't need a master or anything like that. I just want to see that connection because she represents this like she's like the spark of hope,
And she's this growing sense of love and self-nurturing that all of the clones need. She represents that for the clones as a body, not just the Bad Batch, but for all of them.
It's just blooming. She's just like a little flower to me. I don't know, just like growing. And I don't know, I would like to see, that would be really cool to see, especially like you said, because meditation in Star Wars typically isn't because they're just like, I just need to be a better thinker.
Yeah.
Or calm down.
I just need to calm down. I just need to center myself.
It's a trait of like having magical abilities.
Yeah. You're actually kind of a magical girl, Omega.
Yeah. Oh, magical girl, Omega. Now I need someone not me to draw it. I too many other things to draw. Someone please draw it.
So they are called to Coruscant by Rex to help out with finding the backup of the destruction of Camino in Tipoca City. And this is like the shadow of the incident, right? So having something that is buried in the depths of the Venerator still exists is because when you have something atrocious happen, you can't wipe away all signs of it. It's just not possible. Somebody remembers it, right? It affects and lingers within the society around it. And that's reflected in the clones still talking about it and feeling bad about what happened and that they had to do this, as well as this literal physical data backup that exists of a recording of it within the Venerator databanks. Rex basically says, hey, this is going to be the plan. We're going to go and raid this. And Omega says, I'll hang out with Senator Chuchi.
She just does what she wants. She just,
Yeah, and Chuchi's like, you need security clearance. And Tech's like, no problem, Deus Ex Tech.
I just like that there's nothing out there that Omega like she believes she can do anything, and I love it. Like, yeah, I love that. She's just like whatever role she wants to take on, she does it.
Yeah, I love it. And they give her like the dopest, cutest poncho.
Right.
She gets a costume change. I was
so happy. I was so happy.
Magical Girl Omega is well underway.
Oh my gosh. Such a transformation. Next up is another fun thing with her hair. No, I get so excited
when I want nail polish on her. I want her to do nail polish.
Oh, she can do it with like Wrecker, and they both have it.
Oh my god.
Right. The way that I like try to sell people on Bad Batch, at least for season 1, because I haven't I need to finish season 2 has to finish before I can like properly combine it with season 1. But the way that I always try to sell it to people who are reluctant to watch it, I'm like, it's literally just like, I don't view them as her brothers. I'm like, it's literally just dads and their daughter. Like, that's all it, is.
It's like three men and a little lady. Like the old 80s.
Three men and a little lady. Yeah, I know what you mean. The baby, but I would love a moment like that too. Again, we're not going to get that. Who is painting their nails in Star Wars? We're never going to see that. But it's so cute,
Jennifer
like
Corbett.
And like,
make it happen. Make it happen.
Or like a little costume on Lula. I don't know, just something cutesy like that. I love the few times we get anywhere near something like that. But
absolutely,
I love a costume change. I'm happy to see it. I hope again but I would, if they make that poncho, I'd buy it in a heartbeat.
Oh, it was so cute.
Yeah,
I love the purple. It was great.
Yeah.
So Senator Chuchi decides to go and speak with Hallie Bartuni, which I don't think I knew this before, but you told me. What is this? What is her name from?
So, okay, I had to be told this too, but only because I actually know someone who does work for Halliburton too, but it's just Halliburton, it's war profiteering.
Right.
And the first time I heard her name, I was like, oh, Chloe X Hallie. Yeah, I was like, I think that's initially actually why I said girl boss. But
I'm sure this has been known since the Clone Wars episodes, but like literally I didn't know this, but it makes so much sense.
Blows my mind though. Like
right.
I was just like, oh,
because
like,
Halliburton has been known for escalating the desire to go to the Middle East and cause more wars there so that they can get more oil out of, the Middle East, which...
Oh, it's the perfect, blatant, like, I'm obsessed. Mm-hmm. I love it all, even... It's one of the most obvious. I'm sure somebody is listening right now, like, hello, we already have met this character, but like for me, as somebody who had to be told constantly who characters were in other iterations of Star Wars because I hadn't watched the Clone Wars fully. For me, this was like mind blown.
To be fair, I watched the Clone Wars from the beginning and I didn't get this one. So
there's a lot. I will say there's a lot to take. Well, okay, that makes sense. It went over my head. I wasn't listening to her name
before
that closely. I was more focused on Hallie and then going, oh, she's a senator? Oh, I didn't catch that at first. Thought she was just a rich lady.
I'm literally trying to remember if we ever heard her first name, like in the Clone Wars, or if it was just like one of those things that was buried in Wikipedia or something like that. So she talks. So they're connecting with her, and they're like, don't you care what happened to your people? And she's like, my people are scattered across the galaxy. We're all just trying to survive. And to me, I couldn't stop thinking about the parallel with Alderaan and like what happens with Alderaan after. I mean, she's like a crueler example of like an Alderaanian survivor, a Kamonian survivor. But, that idea, like, what do you do once your planet is destroyed? This is also a theme that we're seeing repeated in The Mandalorian, with the Mandalorian people spread throughout the galaxy.
I don't pass judgment on the choice of a character doing that, because I think when it's something incomprehensible, and not everyone can have that undying spirit of, I need to help others. And I don't think that we can fault someone or I think it's just, and I don't know if that's deliberate on the creators for having her be like this cruel version of like an Alderaanian, but it, I identify with that, struggle a bit of like, I lost everything and I'm alive, but am I really, because I've lost everything? And you just have to continue on. And of course, I love, Omega's response a little later, like how direct she is, but it's just one of those characters that I'm like happy to see their emotions and how different they are from the original Star Wars, where you get very clear motivations and you're good, bad, or maybe Han. Good, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little more roguish with the heart of gold. I do think it's important that like this sort of concept of like people who are spread throughout the galaxy without a home has now happened at least 3 times in major canonical events, right? So Mandalore, Camino, and Alderaan, and the people affected by those are being explored in canon. And so when you have something happen 3 times, it's a motif. I'm going to need to think about what it means. But it is something that I'm going to be thinking about now because
good job.
It's something that they are purposefully saying, and we're going to get a lot more of with Mandalorian season 3.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see that with what we're seeing right now with Bad Batch too. Yeah, that's a good point.
We have this great scene with Tucci and Hallie and Omega, and really convincing Hallie to support this with the back and forth with like, well, you need hard evidence, and what good is my word anyways? Nobody will believe me, and then Omega like saying like, I'm a clone. I care about this. Like, we need to care about this. And Hallie's words about Rampart, we already talked about this, but that he's just a cog in the machine. He's really, really, really important because it's not one individual that makes this, society what it is. And as much as we like to pin it all on Palpatine, it's not even just him, right? It's the institutionalization of this dominator culture, this imperialism, this wanting to dominate others for the sake of control and power. And the way it affects the society is very clear. Palpatine just gets all the blame for it, but it's not just him. It's everybody that is swimming in the same direction with him. It's really,
I mean, Star Wars is definitely making, they have been making, or Lucasfilm has been making it a point to follow those stories because we definitely didn't before. And I think it's very easy to forget that it's not just, I like it because it's not to use this word again, but it's another foil to the idea that it always comes down to just the Jedi and the Sith, and it's not, and it's the roles of everyone else and how they fit into this story as a whole. And I like that it takes us a little farther away from the Skywalkers and the Skywalker saw. I mean, obviously we're gonna see Luke again, but
it's also why the First Order rises from the Empire, because the institution didn't transform, right? It just produced a change that ended up coming back to bite it, right? You didn't end up truthfully changing the society. You tried to use this towards that. And like Mon Mothma just tried to re-implement the Republic instead of changing things because the Republic failed. Like it's hard. It's hard stuff, and it's in a kid's cartoon.
I always just expect fun little adventures, so we're grappling with these much larger, darker themes. It's heavy. It's a lot to think about that I can't help but relate to just real world events. I think of how what you were saying. This is not important to it's what I think a lot of the time with these episodes, especially ones that have more political intrigue, is just how Germany is now post World War II and Holocaust, and how it's a restructuring of their they had a whole restructuring of their government and ideology, and you can't fully stomp the evil down, but there are different ways of approaching it,
right?
Yes. Yeah, but there is a concerted effort. It's not just let's just do the same thing that we were doing before. And I think that these are the kinds of, I always think of how these are the things that I'm assuming that the writers and, animators are thinking of. They're telling these stories, and they're telling this story very specifically.
Yeah.
And
it's not random that they're saying that the system itself failed in multiple ways.
I don't think it's just a simple metaphor for we need to take care of our veterans. I do think, of course, that's part of it. But
yes, of course we do. Yeah,
but you know
that,
what I mean?
And it can be multiple things, right? It can be multiple things at the same time.
I'm not always used to Star Wars doing that, so it's fun. It's nice to reflect on it because I'm Star Wars is this one thing, and that's it. I think obviously Last Jedi really changed that up for a lot of us. But, we're so closely related right now with Bad Batch to the prequels. And like, I love the prequels, and I do, there's different themes, but it's very like easy to say, here's the message that they are trying to tell you. It's just this one message.
Yeah.
But each episode of Bad Batch is like, no, there's a new message.
And there's layers to the message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why we're talking, people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you're listening to us for this long.
And the Bad Batch sneaks aboard sneaks into the yard that the Venerator, the Ventnor?
You're saying Venerator, and I'm like, that's what it is. So
I don't know. I wrote it down. I probably wrote it down bad. Let me look. Ventnor class. Yeah, it's
okay, but that's harder to say. I like
it's
Venerator.
The Ventnor. Interestingly, Rex is talking about how it's really hard to wake his brothers up from the Empire. Clone trooper rebellion. But it's with Echo specifically.
Yeah.
They're a liability to the Empire in their current form. And he recognizes that. They know too much. And they briefly discuss, so what's the plan? And he's like, we'll do what you guys do. Improv. And I love this so much because improv, of course, represents this spark of creativity, which is you can't have creativity if you are an oppressor, right? Mm-hmm. You can only have creativity if you are a person that is sort of on a path of compassion and loving others and trying to help others. It's literally like you can't have it if you're trying to oppress others. It's awesome.
Well, and we want to see rebellion in different forms. So any deviation from like the linear path that you think of the clones following is, obviously
awesome.
Is something we want to. It takes us a little step closer to that rebellion. Yeah. So close you can almost taste it.
They sneak onto the ship. They sneak onto the. They bypass the controls of the little like thing, and the droid's like but they get on and they get to the to the bridge and get the backup, turn on the lights, and then use these amazing escape pods as like ejecting all the escape pods and basically just get away with it. Easy peasy.
I know. Right? I was like, it was so easy. I was waiting for.
Omega wasn't with them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right?
Because
Rex is super capable, right? He's one of the best.
But I trust him with my life.
Yeah.
He's like, if he's there, I know that like things are going to be okay. That's just, if I see him, I'm like, feel a little bit more comforted.
Yes.
It was a little easy though, and I'm okay with it. Sometimes I don't want to panic.
Yeah. And so Senator Chuchi is presenting to the Senate at the exact same time as this is all going on. And, she's speaking and she brings forth the Kaminoan senator who's been disgraced and, shocking. And she's like, there was war profiteering, but really Rampart stole from the war profiteers. Rita was funneling funds out of Kaminoa, and just in time, there's a cool handoff, and it felt very like the Death Star plans, like handing off, because it was like to Omega and then to Bail and then to Senator Tucci with the destruction of Tapoka City, and we see the destruction of Tapoka City through Omega's eyes from the outside. And I couldn't help but think of when we saw, like, they like to do this. They like to do this. Like, they've done it with Order 66 from, like, multiple people's angles, right? We've seen it so many times now. And they did it with Resistance, with Hux's speech from Kaz's eyes in Resistance, and the destruction of, like, his homeworld.
Oh, yeah. Wait, does that make it... Wait, I was counting how many things we see destroyed. Sorry.
Oh, continue. Times we've seen this done? I don't know. Like, Order 66, we've seen so many times now.
Yeah.
It's like, we saw it with Ahsoka. We saw it with Kanan and Bad Batch. We saw it in Book of Boba Fett with Grogu. We're probably going to see it again in Mandalorian. We saw it in Kenobi.
I know what I was thinking.
What?
Yeah. Have you listened to read? I was listening to from a certain point of view, like during celebration on the long drive back and forth. So it's just that one event from different perspectives. I love it.
Yeah,
That's why I was
yeah.
sitting here in like stupefied silence, like, where is my brain trying to go right now?
Yeah.
What dots
Yeah,
am I
yeah.
connecting? But yeah.
I mean, it's very Star Wars to do that, right? To recontextualize, you know, an event, especially if it didn't make like a huge impact the first go around, like because of, you know, oh, we didn't really get to know Alderaan. Well, like in a certain point of view and in Lost Stars, we get to know Alderaan and we also get to know the people in the Death Star. We get to see these things from different perspectives. And it just gives us like a different context to the galaxy.
I think the way that also like ties back into Bad Batch for me is that I think I mentioned the first time we recorded that I did not care about that. I was like, why do I need to care about clones? Like, why are we getting another clone show? They're all the same. We already had a Clone Wars show and a movie. And then, you know, watching this, it's like, no, this is something entirely different. These are, it's just so different. It's recontextualizing it.
Yeah.
My brain went on this journey just now, and without
you,
it was going to be scattered across the galaxy like a million stars. And you roped me back in.
Well, so we see the destruction, and Rampart's like, no, and enter Palpatine.
Oh my gosh, I had a field day. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interject. First off, the video footage, I laughed because of everyone's like, oh, the gasping. And I'm like, you've watched this clip for 3 seconds, 2 seconds even. How do you know what's happening? I highly doubt you all know these ships. I had a good laugh at that. So I was already laughing. Then there was this sound that like before his little podium rose up, there was the sound like announcing it just was so funny to me. It was like I don't know what it was, like an alarm almost. And just this whole thing, because this is like evil Palpatine to a T. Ooh, I was excited. I was like, friend, not really, but it was
reminder, he's an expert senator.
Yeah.
and a political maneuverer. And we deserved a political show.
Oh, yeah.
Young, hot Sheev Palpatine.
Yeah.
We deserved it. Where's my hot Sheev Palpatine show?
I want my redhead he's canonically a redhead, and I deserve to see more redheads. Unfortunately, is another guy, evil, whatever, with red hair.
People don't know this, but you're a redhead, right? So
yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, I feel very connected to Palpatine. No, this
was like the original plot of that original Underworld show, was to like humanize Sheev Palpatine with like this crazy tragic backstory.
I don't know if I know about
so back in the 90s,
I don't know this.
George Lucas wanted to create a underworld show. And, you know, while he was making, like, the next project after the prequels was going to be this underworld live action TV show, because he thought TV was, like, the next generation of Star Wars. He ended up going ahead with the Clone Wars right away, but it was still in his plan before the sale for Disney.
A live action show?
A live action show.
How did I not know this?
The technology just wasn't there yet to like make it cost effective, right?
Poor George.
He's just brilliant, right? Like he had all these ideas, but there was this whole like subplot idea about basically giving Sheev Palpatine a tragic love story, and that's kind of what caused this ripple in the galaxy.
So he's Grievous.
He's also Anakin.
Oh, that's a good point. Why?
Right? So, yeah. Like, the idea is to say no one is ever truly evil. This is from George's mouth, and no one is beyond redemption. He's said this multiple times. So, like, when I say Sheev-demption, it's because I, like, literally, so would George.
Well, he loves the fairy. That's the fairy tale aspect of it too. It's like,
but it ties into his concept of the morality in Star Wars, right?
Right.
There's never not a way back. There's always a way back from the dark side.
Yeah, I mean, again, you only get a little bit of that, but you definitely get it with the original trilogy. And I'm just like mind blown right now, because can you imagine that show?
I know.
would have.
I think there's like speckles of it with like the Mandalorian and like what it ended up being, you know, and
yeah,
I just like it was supposed to be set in like the underworld of Coruscant.
Oh my gosh, I want a tragic love story show. That show would have been, the ratings would have been horrible, and it, like the prequels, would not have been appreciated until now or whatever.
Yeah.
It would have been torn apart on Reddit or the message boards.
He's the start of the internet too, so like
George is like, he's brilliant.
He's brilliant, and there is a place for a story that builds Sheev Palpatine as a tragic hero. And I say that purposefully because tragic heroes are villains stuck in the underworld.
I would actually, so that's like one of the few, I don't like revisiting characters, and like I do, like once I've seen the show, like that's how I was with Andor, where I didn't want that story until I actually had it, and was like,
oh wait,
I did want this story, but I actually would be very excited if we were to get that show now. Because Sheev is he's just such a caricature of, you know, evil incarnate. Look at the way he was animated this episode with the shadow, you know, the hood. He looks like this, I think, also with Rebels too. And he's just like, he's the Oogie Boogie Man. He's just like,
like I'm the monster in the darkness. But like, imagine if he's like charming and like a little bit like, you know, corrupt, but then there's like this character that like is there.
That's
love
what
stories wise.
Phantom Menace. I love that Sheev. I love that Sheev. Yeah.
And like all the politics would be so cool, like the West Wing, but West Wing.
That's what I've been asking for. I've been asking for. Let's get and the romance. Okay, I'll take it. I'm gonna start pushing.
Is Aaron Sorkin a Star Wars fan? Get him to write a Star Wars.
Oh my gosh! And then
can you imagine the dialogue? Well, it would be Andor quick. Like getting the right writers, like it would just be so good.
That would be a gritty dark show. Just like, it would be a lot like Andor too. Sorry. Thank you for explaining that. That was a necessary tangent though, because right when we're done recording this, you better believe I'm going to go looking for more information about this.
I mean, there isn't much. There was like some test footage shot. And like,
I'll take it.
You'll find it, and then you'll be like, "Oh my gosh! Oh hey, these are
now."
All like, just,
this
like,
is my this is my personality now. This is what I'm taking on now.
I love you. Palpatine enters, and in classic Palpatine fashion, is like, "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. This vile rampart who does not have a first name."
But okay.
Did this all on his own because he was so greedy.
I mean, were you a little relieved though to get this? Sorry, but were you? I was relieved. My fear was, here he is to ruin the people, you know, who's exposing the plans. Like, I was just ready for him to do another type of lie. So my expectations were thwarted. And again, that is what I want from Star Wars. I want them to do what at least for me, I'm not guessing. It was just a different way to handle a villain and like showing that
it was smarter because he was willing to burn.
Smarter.
Rampart meant nothing to him. Exactly what Hallie said, right? Like saying he's just a cog in the machine. Rampart meant nothing. We thought Rampart had power. He had nothing. You know, maybe Palpatine will bring him back and like throw him in some backwoods place. But, you know, he was willing to burn him in front of the Senate to say, look, you're politically done. You're not good, boy. And he twists it and says, like, we cannot trust the clones. The same thing that he set up from the beginning is that they blindly follow orders because of the chip, right? We can't trust this. So we need, you know, new people, thus increasing the suffering of the galaxy, bringing average citizens out of their lives to be brought into violence.
Why is anyone cheering for this? Like, why would you think like, I want to see my people? Like, that is the furthest thing from my mind. At least I'd be like, I don't know. I'm always very amused by how it's just a blanket reaction from people like, that's actually a really great idea. who elected these people into these positions just because they don't think. Anyway, continue, please.
I was obsessed with the music during this moment because it reminded me so much of the wailing choral of Padme's ruminations.
I can sing it for you right now. That's one of my favorites.
But like, there's like wailing choral in the background of this moment. And I was like, oh, the Force is weeping for the galaxy. And he announces the Imperial Stormtrooper
my heart sank.
Program. I have this whole theory about how the choral represents the will of the Force in the prequels. And like when you hear it, I did a whole thing on meta music on the choral of the prequels, and it shows up.
I'll go back and listen to that because I agree. No, I agree completely.
we had the amazing Elise Willis to talk about the choral, and she actually was the choir coordinator for The Rise of Skywalker, and was the opera singer note person in Canto Bight that's like, oh, when in that like
duh.
Yeah, that was her.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so fun. I'm always learning something new about The Last Jedi. I swear this is the movie that keeps on giving. I'm always like yourself and other creators who just do like I'm always learning, and I love it.
She's a joy.
I love it.
She's a joy. Yeah, that's her. Yeah.
Best part. I laughed so loud in the theater. I did my like shout laugh and I was so amused. Ugh, what a star.
And so he twists the fate, or like twists what happened for his own advantage. And Rex points out like the fate of the clones is now sealed because of us. Yeah. Right. And we get this goodbye with Echo like moving back into the Bad Batch. And literally the Bad Batch is like, see ya. Bye.
I was just like, huh? And then Omega was like, huh?
What?
And then we were both, me and Omega, we were just like, wait, I genuinely thought that I had spaced out during a conversation in another scene.
I think that was purposeful because we were supposed to be at the same speed as Omega, right? So it's obvious like they had had a conversation, right?
Excuse me. Wait. Like stops. Oh my gosh. I know. And I don't think we're going to see him again, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was just excuse me.
Okay. So we said we'd talk about this at the start. Like you and I were like, okay, we'll talk about Echo. But
I still don't have an answer.
He has been the furthest along on the pathway to saying, it's not just me, it's us. Yeah. Right. And Hunter and the rest of the Bad Batch have been saying it's only the Bad Batch, right? So Echo himself has been seeing the greater need and aligns with Rex, and we got that planted in throughout this episode. And Omega's like, understands that the clones need his help, but she's like, we're a squad, we're a family. Like, we're the unit, right? Yeah. But what Echo is saying is, no. We're not just this unit. We're also the bigger unit of all of the clones. It's very bodhisattva, right? It's very like, we can't be free to reach nirvana without everybody.
Everyone. That's a good point, because think of like Omega's speech where she's, I'm a clone too.
Yeah.
But it's easy for her. She's always been kind of removed though, because she's special. She didn't start, we are introduced to her character as something special that we haven't seen before. So
she's protected. And, as much as she says that to, in the room with the senators and is trying to convince them to do things, like it's a very different thing to say, okay, now I also see myself as a participant in this galaxy and that I take responsibility for the suffering of others. It's a big
and there's
thing.
A sacrifice that has to be made.
Yeah, and Echo is further along in that journey to say he has so much compassion for others because like he has experienced so much suffering at the hands of evil hands, right? So he knows what freedom truthfully means, and so he had to be the one to go, right? And the rest aren't ready. Like that's just where they are from a character perspective. Again, the character is the plot is the character. The rest of the Bad Batch aren't ready. They will be ready at some point. Yeah. And they probably need Crosshair to be fully ready.
Yeah. It was, I was just really stuck on why the choice was made, because from a different perspective of like, okay, is it because they wanted to do something interesting that broke up the Bad Batch a little bit? Why was it Echo? And like, it makes sense it would be him, because his character this whole season has been, we need to help others. I guess my hang up is that the Bad Batch is all kind of moving towards that, and I didn't see why Echo needed to be separated from it, but or like why we needed to see one of them leave, like,
well, separations are really important from a growth perspective, because you need the compare and contrast between yourself in your normal life and what Echo is going to be experiencing, and you need he's been saying this whole time, like, we need to care about the clones, but the rest of them have to come to that conclusion without him repeating it.
Yeah, I guess they kind of dismissed it before a bit. Yeah. And that's why we see some of that in last week's episodes. And I guess it's just the introduction. Yeah. No, I don't disagree with it. I think it's going to make more sense to me. Like, I sometimes just need I'm impatient and I need the full explanation. I think it'll make sense once he returns back to the story. It was just very abrupt for me. And sometimes I question, I'm like, well,
I think it's just because of like the timing of the episodes and how they try to keep them so tight. Like, they try to keep them so
maybe that's what it is.
Like, they did that rescue mission of the Data, like, it was like 3 minutes.
Again, that was the most surprise. That was a blink and you miss it. Nothing went, like, everything was fine.
Omega wasn't there.
Omega wasn't there. There was no one else to like rescue. It was.
I mean, Rex is a very stabilizing force. Let's just.
And I guess that's why. I guess that's good for Echo to go with someone like Rex too. Yeah.
Rex, he'll be fine. Like, Rex.
No, I'm not worried about him. I was my sadness was, but family. We stick together.
But remember, family now means all the clones.
Yeah.
To Echo,
all of them,
right, and same with Rex, right? He keeps on using the term brother, right? And the Bad Batch feels apart from the rest of the clones, and they can't, right? So I think that's why Crosshair is out with the other clones, because he needs to be the thing that like turns internally in the engine and comes back.
He will. There's going to be some atrocity that he witnesses that pushes him over the edge, or something,
there's someone's
going to pull him back. Yeah. He's in the underworld, but it was an abrupt sort of like, it was like surprise at the end, and I was just like, oh my gosh, okay, bye. So it was a surprising way to end that episode. Like Omega, I was just kind of floored, but we'll see him again.
We absolutely will. All right, these 2 episodes, my goodness. Any final thoughts,
They're just giving us
Molly?
so much. I mean, again, just like I said last week, I am so pleasantly surprised with the story. And I mentioned this to you earlier that I saw someone tweet like something akin to, so Bad Batch, it's really good, right? And I get it. Like, I get it. As if I love Bad Batch, but and there are super diehard fans of Bad Batch out there, and they consume the fanfic and the fan art and everything, and they have their biases, kind of like a K-pop group. It's cute, but I think that this season is just it's so very different. It's directed for not a different audience, but definitely like a different lens. It's just really enjoyable. It's so enjoyable. This week was exceptionally good. Dare I say it, for me, maybe more enjoyable for me than last week, only because I love the political intrigue, but I loved it.
Yeah.
Once again, I love it. No notes.
And anytime there's politics in Star Wars, I love it. So this is like my jam. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm ready to do a little dance.
All right. Thank you, Molly, for joining me in this deep dive conversation with Bad Batch Report. Where can people find you if they are looking for you online?
You can find me on Twitter. That is apparently allowing everyone to tweet again.
Yay us.
I could not earlier. At Darth Molly, spelled Maullie. by the way, I am the picture surrounded. It's me surrounded by Newt Gunray.
Yes.
And you can find me on Instagram at Darth_Molly, spelled the same way.
Awesome. And we'll be back in 2 weeks for 2 new episodes. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C., and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.